Welcome everybody to the Social Dig, home of the greatest underrated show on the World Wide Web. I'm your host, Mr. Rob G. And like always, we're going to be digging into the topics that keep you talking and the talk that keeps you thinking. It's a Sunday social, you know what I mean? Had to do something because we have the Disclosure Project 2.0 going on tomorrow with Dr. Stephen Greer. So this officially is the Disclosure Project 1.0 show. What we're going to do, for those of you who may not know about the Disclosure Project and the role that it played in getting us to where we're at, we're going to go over some of the speakers, the original speakers from 2001, some of the things that they covered, kind of give you a feeling of the format. It was really important, although it did happen at a time when our country experienced one of the worst tragedies ever, 9/11. So definitely this most likely didn't get the shine that it should have gotten due to the focus on healing our country. So I'm going to go ahead and get into a few topics here. This is a little different than a normal day. So what we're going to do, we're going to do some disclosure news. We're going to hit a couple topics because I want to talk about the 1933 UFO crash in Italy and then the ties that it might have to the Glock. So I researched a little information. We'll go over that. But the main part of the show, we'll be jumping into the Disclosure Project 1.0, getting you ready for tomorrow, which you'll probably see this on Monday. So it'll be today. The Disclosure Project 2.0, which will be taking place at the National Press Club. Live stream starting at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We just might live stream it here. I haven't decided. But at any rate, if we don't, we'll definitely go over the details and what was talked about at the Disclosure Project 2.0. It's happening at a time when we have all this disclosure talk going. You have David Grush coming out, whistleblowing, talking about the things that the government is hiding. And the climate is probably just right for something like a disclosure project. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead and get ready to jump into our normal stuff here, which would be the disclosure news. All right, disclosure news. So a couple things that we're going to be talking about. Well, actually, what we'll go over first. Obviously, I'm sure you've seen the Las Vegas UFO video, or purported UFO video. We're not sure exactly what it was. And the young man who was a witness to this actually ended up releasing a statement video on it. So what I want to do is go ahead and take a look at the original report, and then we'll go ahead and follow that up with the witness's statement. So with no further delay, let's go ahead and take a look at the original news story right here.
It is the police call everybody will be talking about. Thanks for joining us here at 6 o'clock. I'm Denise Valdez.
I'm Brian Loftus. A family says something crashed into their backyard, prompting them to call 911, saying they saw creatures walking around.
Our 8 News Now investigators digging into this for weeks now. And tonight, our David Charnes with the video you will only see on 8 News Now. David?
Right, Denise, sources telling the 8 News Now investigators that several agencies believe something landed or crashed. Whether it was non-humans or not, it certainly scared the people living on this property. Now, before we show you that video, listen to their call for help.
There's like an 8-foot person beside it, and another one's inside, and it has big eyes and looking at us, and it's still there.
Okay, where is this on your property?
In my backyard. I swear to God, this is not a joke. This is actually we terrified of it.
So there's two people or two subjects that are in your backyard?
Correct, and they're very large. They're like 8 foot, 9 feet, 10 foot. I don't know. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes. They have big eyes, like I can't explain it, and big mouth. They're shiny eyes, and they're not human. They're 100% they're not human.
Okay.
Well, the 8 News Now investigators obtaining video as officers then responded to the call you just heard. You'll see the officers also saw something in the sky that night, but the big question is, what was it, and is it all connected?
Leave her alone.
It's almost midnight on May 1st when a Las Vegas Metro Police officer's body cam catches this, something flashing low in the sky.
911 emergency.
Minutes later,
there's like an 8 foot person beside it, and another one's inside, and it has big eyes and looking at us, and it's still there.
someone calls 911 reporting two large figures in their backyard.
No, I'm so nervous right now.
The 8 News Now investigators obtaining another officer's video as he's sent to the Northwest Valley home.
I have butterflies, bro. Everyone saw a shooting star, then these people say there's aliens in their backyard.
By now, it's more than an hour after that bright light. Officers meeting up with the caller and his family.
What'd you see?
It was like a big creature.
A big creature?
Yeah, like around 10 feet tall.
I'm not going to BS you guys. One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too, so that's why I'm kind of curious. Did you see anything land in your backyard? Or
they see like a big, that's what they say. They see like a big something with light.
What I saw right now, I do believe in it.
Police walk into the backyard to investigate, but Metro blacked out that part of the video because it's considered private property. What's clear, they're taking this call seriously.
Hey, this might sound like a really dumb question, but did you guys see anything fall out of the sky?
Asking others what they saw.
I would normally discount it as nothing. However, seeing as one of my partners said they saw it too, only reason I'm actually investigating it further.
That investigation turning up no concrete answers as of Wednesday. Whatever or whoever fell into that yard, long gone within minutes.
Oh, hey, if those 9-foot beings come back, don't call us, all right? Deal with it yourself. I ain't dealing with that.
So yeah, this is quite weird, Brian was saying as we're watching this story. Now, we've been in contact with the family in that video, and as you heard in that 911 call, they seem very reasonable and honestly quite scared as you heard them in the call. No, they don't seem impaired in any way. And whatever crashed by the time that police got there was gone, but sources say that there's really no dispute. Something was in their yard. Exactly what? We do not know.
I mean, it's so interesting. So, like, the Metro officer sees something, the neighbor sees something. I mean, so what could it be?
Well, we know that there are obviously a lot of military bases around this area. George Knapp covers a lot of that stuff for us on the 8 News Now investigators. We're showing you drone video from above that area. And we know, of course, Creech not far away, Nellis Air Force Base not far. I checked in with them. They say they are not involved at all, and we are waiting to hear from the Pentagon as well.
And you talked to these people. It seemed completely legitimate to you. And do you have any personal thoughts on maybe what it was?
Right. So it seems from talking to our sources that something happened. There was obviously some flash in the sky. A lot of people saw it that night on the night of April 30th, early in the morning on May 1st. Did that exact thing land in their yard? I don't know. But these people said they saw some SUV circling the area. Could this have been some piece of equipment that malfunctioned? Maybe they saw something and then someone came. I can't believe we're talking about this.
Right.
Someone came and retrieved it from the backyard in the SUV. We don't know. This all comes as a former high-level intelligence officer, a veteran, was on News Nation talking about how there is a program where the government collects some unidentified objects. So this might be that.
Yeah, so, with that story, it circulated around the globe, actually. It's pretty much gone viral. They did a follow-up to the story, and the thing that troubles me about this, and I'll just briefly talk about it for a moment, is, there's some pros and cons to this story. So, granted, there was a fireball in the sky. Now, definitely could be a meteorite. And as far as if it is a meteorite, I would hope that one of those meteorite hunters, I don't know what they call themselves specifically, but those are actually worth money. So, for sure, someone is out there looking for that meteorite, and they should be able to come up with that. We should have that pretty much covered pretty soon here. Someone comes out and says, hey, I found a piece of the rock. Then there we go. We know it was a meteorite. But it did take on a bluish color, and I know I heard from a couple people that could be something in regards to the meteorite breaking up and the CO2 within it that causes it to be blue. So, I can go with that. Now, the story with the bean that was supposed to be in the backyard, they focused on that circle that they show on the news, and I really wouldn't hang my hat on that. I guess they did state that the young man pointed that out, but only after an officer brought it to his attention that there happened to be this perfect circle in the backyard. Now, obviously, we saw they have bulldozers and things like that, and the way their wheels articulate, those could easily make those circle patterns. And there was actually other tire marks there as well. However, with that being said, George Knapp, in a follow-up interview or a report rather on News 8, did state that they tried to reach out to the family and they set up interviews for them multiple times. But when it came time to do the interview, they did not answer their door. They did not answer their phone. That's very strange to me. That kind of, makes me feel like this potentially could be a hoax. And then to top that off, the young man did release a response video going over his encounter, which we'll watch here in a moment. But he references that he also had done an interview with, it sounds like, a fellow YouTuber. So the question would be, why would you give the interview to that person rather than the local news outlet that would give you great coverage on this story? So I didn't really feel too good about that. Made me think twice. Now we'll go ahead and watch the young man's reply, and it appears that he's reading what he's saying, which I potentially, if he wanted to make sure that he came across with all the details, that can make sense. But just tell me what you think. We'll go ahead and take a look at that right now.
I'm here to tell you what happened to me on May 1st, 2023. I'm trying to explain the best of my abilities. This is not a conspiracy theory. I'm not making this story out for clout or fame. I just want to tell you what happened to me and my family. And I know some people are not going to believe this, but each person is different. So this is what happened to me. Keep in mind, this is midnight and I'm fixing a truck in my backyard. At this point, I'm only with my brother and I hear something fall from the sky. I turn around. The only thing I see is a big light falling from the sky. And moments after, I feel a big impact and a bang, sort of like a big impact fall. And me and my brother looked at each other and we were scared. But when the impact happened, it was sort of like a shock wave, like an out-of-body experience. So to say, when I tried to look at the object, it was all blurry, not my vision, but only the backyard area. And I hear thousands of footsteps around me, and maybe a couple seconds later, the blurriness was gone. And here's the footage of the body, the police officer's body cam, and here's the object I'm referring to, the light. Video. Here's a Ring camera video. You can hear the bang. This is around the neighborhood. So here's the video. So when that happened, the only thing I can see in the backyard is a tall creature, probably around 8-10 feet tall, very thin. So I called my dad. He went to the backyard and he saw the same thing, the same creature I saw. He told me to go inside the house. At this point, we all freaking out, me and my family. And here's the video where we were in the backyard area. You cannot see it too good, but on camera, but it's there. Here's the video.
¡Ay! Permisor! Calmungarela, me canceles var eso. Cáelo, cherro, que chidica. Cáelo, cherro.
Moments after the video, me and my brother went to go pick up my tools. Then my brother calls me, and he told me shakingly, look behind the forklift. So I look. Keep in mind I'm facing the forklift, and then I see the alien creature. So when I saw it, it was a tall, skinny, lengthy creature. He was a gray, greenish color, and when I looked at it in the eyes, my body just froze. Like the same experience as having sleep paralysis. Keep in mind I'm staring at him, and I look at his whole body, and he has a weird looking feet and a big face and eyes, and you can see a big mouth. And I could hear his loud, deep breathing, and I could see his stomach moving. He would just stare at me. Seconds later, I could start moving again. And I start running towards the house. That's when I call 911, and here's the 911 call.
There's like an 8-foot person beside it, and another one's inside, and it has big eyes and looking at us, and it's still there.
Okay, where is this on your property?
In my backyard. I swear to God, this is not a joke. This is actually we're terrified of it.
So there's two people or two subjects that are in your backyard?
Correct, and they're very large. They're like 8 foot, 9 feet, 10 foot. I don't know. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes. They have big eyes, like I can't explain it, and big mouth. They're shiny eyes, and they're not human. They're 100% they're not human.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the police to come, and you could hear footsteps in the backyard area, and a loud whispering, like you could hear whisperings. We were in the living room area, and you could hear footsteps on the roof. So we waited a little bit for the police. When they arrived, I told them what I saw, and they were kind of freaked out. Here's the body cam of the officer.
Now, it's more than an hour after that bright light. Officers meeting up with the caller and his family.
What'd you see?
It was like a big creature.
A big creature?
Yeah, like around 10 feet tall.
I'm not going to BS you guys. One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too, so that's why I'm kind of curious. Did you see anything land in your backyard, or?
They see like a big. That's what they say. They see like a big something with light.
What I saw right now, I do believe in it.
Police walk into the backyard to investigate, but Metro.
So they went in the backyard, and one of the officers pointed at the floor, and it was a perfect circle. Here's a photo of the circle I'm referring to. Keep in mind, 2 officers came in my house, and one of them started running to his car, driving around the neighborhood, asking passing cars if they saw light.
What's clear, they're taking this call seriously.
Hey, this might sound like a really dumb question, but did you guys see anything fall out of the sky?
Asking others what they saw.
I would normally discount it as nothing. However, seeing as one of my partners said they saw it too, only reason I'm actually investigating it further.
Goosebumps and freaking out. He started investigating that he told me his partner, she saw a light falling from the sky. He told me he believes me because her partner reported that she saw the same light as me. Now we're walking the front yard. Then the other officer came here. Here's a video of him talking to my family.
If those 9-foot beings come back, don't call us, all right? Deal with it yourself. I ain't dealing with that.
So, moments before they left, one of the officers told me, if I see the thing again, to don't call him, just shoot him. And you can hear in the video. Here's the video.
If those 9-foot beings come back, don't call us, all right? Deal with it yourself. I ain't dealing with that.
So they left, and we went inside the house, and we started praying. as we're praying, you could hear a loud human-like scream in the backyard. This is what happened to me on May 1st, 2023. I hope you guys kind of understand what happened to me. I know it's hard to believe, but I saw what I saw, and it's kind of going viral. That's why I'm here to explain the story. I did an interview with journalist Doc Papa. I'm going to put his video in the description. I'm going to make a part 2 of the stuff that happened after May 1st, and thank you for watching the video.
Yeah, so what do you think? I mean, I'm leaning towards, I don't really think that, even though there are some similarities, I don't really, I hate to just say the young man's not telling the truth. But a couple things that were kind of strange about his explanation of what happened was, and then also information that was later released, is that you heard in the police video, they stated when they were being interviewed in the driveway that the landlord has a camera up on the light pole. So from what I heard about that, which we haven't seen any video of what happened, but apparently it was said that the camera cut out for a minute and then came back on. So the question would be, now we'll just, once again, we'll do the devil's advocate thing. So we'll say, okay, if it did land, if there was something that landed, which there's technically no proof of that at this point, and people have reported electronics going haywire, batteries dying, things like that. So I would want to know, if the camera did go out, when did it come back on? How long after it went out did it come back on? One. And then two, he stated that these things were walking on the roof. He heard footsteps on the roof. Now, that stuck out a little bit because if you recall, a sighting that sounded similar to that would be the Hopkinsville case, where the ETs landed and the gentleman who lived at the house, the son, was outside at the water well and observed these creatures. After he observed some sort of craft or lights in the sky, a few minutes later, he observed creatures walking out of the forest with their hands in the air. They had claws, and he ran in the house. Those creatures were reported to have approached the house, peered through the windows, attempted to get in some cases. When he went outside one time during the incident, which lasted a few hours and went through the night, actually, until they went to the police. However, when they went outside one time, they reported that a creature was on the roof and actually reached down and grabbed his hair. So, I mean, who's to say? Who's to say what happened? I'm leaning more towards, with the evidence that we have at this point, I'm leaning more towards probably not. But, you always have to keep you always have to be open-minded. So if for some reason this interview that he did, which I think he said was with the person by the name of Papa Doc, so I would assume that's probably a YouTube personality. I'll have to try to find that video if that's the case. And if there's anything that comes out that proves that maybe it did happen, then okay, I may change my stance on it. But the other thing that would pretty much case close this whole thing is if someone goes out wherever the meteor landed and get some fragments from the meteor. It definitely exploded, which you heard in the film, in the ring camera from the neighbor. So it definitely exploded. So there should be fragments somewhere of that meteor. That'll be case closed, and I just don't want this case specifically to interfere with the light that's being shined on David Grush right now, because I think it's pretty important to be focused on that and not to have anything take away the focus and on something that potentially is going to be a hoax. I mean, this thing went probably more viral than David Grush coming out admitting that the U.S. has crashed craft and potentially beings. Now, with that being said, if we're to believe that the David Grush story is true, and then the video that I did show you in the last episode, which showed a being walking down a driveway. Now, if these things are possible, then this kid's story could turn around if he provides enough evidence and maybe even validate itself. So that's my 2 cents on that. I just wanted to go ahead and do a follow-up on that because I didn't get to give my view on what I thought about his witness encounter video. So I don't know. Leave in the comments what you guys think about it. Most people I see feel the same way, that potentially this thing is a hoax. A lot of people aren't going for it. So we'll just kind of leave that there and see if it develops any further. But as far as that goes, that's pretty much it for Disclosure News. Like I said, this is a Disclosure Project show. So we're going to focus on the good things that happen at Disclosure Project. But before we can do that, let's go ahead and get out of this Disclosure News. All right, so other news, other things that have been going on within Disclosure. We had a revelation from David Grush. One of the things that he did come out and say was that, and one of the things that he was able to talk about that wasn't basically classified information, top secret information, was that the U.S. had recovered a craft from Italy that had crashed in Italy back in 1933. So we kind of looked into that a little bit. And, for those who may not know, that wasn't actually new news. That the knowledge of this being the case has been out for a while. So, in 2000, actually, there was a guy by the name of Roberto Panatti, and he published material regarding the so-called fascist UFO files, which dealt with the flying saucer that had crashed near Milan in 1933, some 14 years before the Roswell, New Mexico crash, and the subsequent investigation by a never-mentioned-before cabinet, RS-33, that allegedly was authorized by Benito Mussolini and headed by the Nobel scientist Guglielmo Marconi. So bad with names. The spaceship was allegedly stored in the hangars of the SIAI Marchetti in Viragi near Milan. Now, with that being said, an excerpt from that story was that the write-up from Roberto Panatti states, indeed, in Italy, there were many UFO sightings between 1933 and 1940. So little wonder the secret commission was established to study them. Now, according to the fascist UFO files we received, it was founded by Mussolini along with fascist ministers Italo Balbo and Galeazzo Ciano, and it was headed by Guglielmo Marconi. The first UFO case was in 1931 near Venice. The second is above mentioned case when on June 13th, 1933, a landed UFO was recovered. And if you take a look here, this is actually a map image of where this UFO was actually found outside of Magenta, Italy. Now, in April of 1945, the 1st Armored Division captured the SIAI Marchetti Aviation Facility. So this is during World War II, where the 1933 Magenta UFO or its debris was probably kept, and it was brought to the United States. Indeed, the RS-33 cabinet had continued to work right up to the time of the Italian Social Republic, the period in which was a part in the documentation of UFOs. And several sealed boxes had been sent to Berlin, while a part, not an irrelevant part, remained in Italy. Now, there was also a telegram, which if you're a young person, you may not know what a telegram was. This is before cell phones. This is before texting. This is before emails. It was a way of communicating over wire. And this is the telegram that was sent. Obviously, cannot read that, but I do have a translation of what this says. So it says, by personal order of the Duce, i.e. Mussolini, absolute silence is required about an alleged landing on national soil of unknown aircraft. Stop. Release version dispatched today by Stefani Agency confirmed. Stop. The same version also applies to personnel and journalists. Stop. Anticipated max punishment for transgressors up to the referral to the Tribunal for State Security. Stop. So essentially, they had pretty much a task force that was set up way back then in Italy in the 1930s to try to address the UFO problem. They were actually already retrieving craft and putting them in hangars, same as what's being accused today by David Grush of what the United States government is doing. And, I think that's pretty fascinating because a lot of people, I'll say a lot of skeptics, when they look at this, they just, for some reason, believe that it couldn't be possible that this would be the case. Now, you have to ask yourself and look at it realistically. As young as we are, as humanity goes, in our ability to travel space, I believe, and I may be off by a year or two, but it was actually early 1900s is what I'll say, is when the Wright brothers first took flight. It was in the first decade of the 20th century, the 19th century. Yeah, 20th century. Yeah, 20th. Okay, so think about that. We've only been flying for the last maybe 100, we'll say 120 years. And in the last 60 years, we've been able to reach out to space. We've already, if you believe what NASA tells you, we've already sent rovers to Mars that are driving around on Mars. So if there was any life on Mars, which we don't know at this point, it doesn't appear to be, but who knows? The rover is only looking in a certain way at a certain time. But our rovers are extraterrestrial vehicles to the planet Mars. So to say that crafts aren't visiting other planets, the extraterrestrial crafts aren't visiting other planets, that right there would make that statement invalid, because our rovers are extraterrestrial crafts and they are visiting and roaming the surface of another world. We talked about in previous video Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, which was sent out back in 1976 and 77. And those have been traveling nonstop through space for the last 45 years and traveling at speeds of up to 36,000 miles per second. That's pretty crazy, right? So I want to say it's per second. I'm pretty sure it is. Now, whatever the case, they're traveling very dang fast, and they have pretty much left the solar system at this point, or at least on the outer edges of the solar system. But looking at James Webb Telescope, when you see how many solar systems are out there, how many galaxies, it hasn't really traveled anywhere, and it's been going nonstop for 50 years. So space is infinity. Let's think about that for a moment. Space is infinity. So if you can wrap your head around infinity, which we can't even comprehend it, then what else can we not comprehend? Let's think about that. Now, these creatures or these beings, being more advanced than us, most likely they have to be if they've gotten here, they've been traveling space forever, way longer than we have. They have figured out the best way to travel, which is evident because we're seeing objects in our skies. And they have, in some cases, if you want to believe what people are saying, they've reached this planet and they are potentially walking on this planet. So just when you look at that, it kind of validates a lot of the things that people have said, which are similar accounts. Also, if you look at that, for the last 75 years, a lot of different people telling pretty much the exact same stories, and it's not because they're copying the other person. People are having genuine experiences. Now, granted, some may not be genuine experiences, and I'm open to that. But even if 1% of the stories are true and valid, well, hey, that confirms life visiting from another planet. So just something to look at. And with this 1933 Italy sighting, with it being something that potentially is going to be valid, then it kind of makes you want to think about the Nazi Germany, Hitler, the De Glock that was rumored to have been built or potentially retrieved as a crash retrieval and reverse engineered back during World War II, that could potentially be a thing. So, and we're going to actually get into talking about the Glock before we jump into our disclosure project stuff. So with the Glock, and this is not obviously an image of it, but it's a good representation. So just kind of go over some points because some of the story along with the Glock in its considered conspiracy theory was that Nazi Germany had actually made their way to Antarctica and built secret bases, and this is where the whole hollow earth, and I really don't get into that because it's, if there's something like that going on, it should be easily provable. But kind of going over the Glock. So the Glock and the extraterrestrial connection. Now, some accounts suggest that the Glock was reverse engineered from a crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft. Witnesses claim that the device incorporated advanced technologies not yet understood by humans at the time. Then it alleged hieroglyphic symbols, which we've heard in some cases. I want to say, was it the Maelstrom, or no, it was the RAF Bentwaters, where they saw a craft and it actually depicted, it had hieroglyphic type symbols on it. So with this one here, the Glock, the hieroglyphic like symbols found on the Glock have been associated with ancient civilizations, purported extraterrestrial influences, suggesting a possible connection to beings from other worlds. Then there was also the rumored advanced capabilities that they may have had during World War II. The device's alleged anti-gravity and time-bending capabilities exceed the technological knowledge of time, leading to speculation that its origins lie beyond Earth. The Nazi Germany's secret projects. So, technological advancements. Nazi Germany actively pursued advanced technological projects during World War II. Die Glock, if real, would fit within the broader context of the Nazis' relentless drive for scientific superiority. Then there was a general within the Nazi army named General Hans Kammler. Now, the SS general allegedly oversaw secret projects, including Die Glock. Kammler's involvement in mysterious initiatives adds credence to the possibility of hidden Nazi technological advancements. Nazi Germany's focus on unconventional and secretive projects raises questions about the extent of the scientific achievements and the potential involvement of extraterrestrial knowledge or collaboration. So when you think about that, that makes me think about like ancient humans, right? So there's the idea that we have forgotten potentially lost technology, essentially. Like we were more technologically capable in the past, which when you look at the pyramids and you go look at the Aztecs and all those different parts of the world where they have had things like running water and things like that back then, which is pretty crazy. And I also had looked into something where they thought that the Egyptian pyramids were actually like pretty much power stations, and there's been widely believed that they were just built for the pharaohs to be buried in. And they stated that actually they haven't found any pharaohs in any of the pyramids. They've all been recovered off site. So, when you think about lost technology and having to relearn technology, which makes a lot of sense, because if we've only developed what we have technological wise, we'll just give it the last 300 years, about 200 years, 300 years, when we've been on this earth for thousands and thousands of years. So there really has to be something to that. So it isn't a long shot to say that potentially those ancient technologies have been influenced by extraterrestrials potentially. And then the same thing today, where it's widely believed that the crash craft that have been recovered and potentially reverse engineered, that some of our biggest technological advancements that we've had may have been based off of knowledge gained from reverse engineering craft. So if that's true, which it sounds like it is, then it's quite possible that Nazi Germany were pretty much on that same path. So yeah, with that being said, I'm going to go on this here. So we had the Antarctic bases, which, there's a lot of Hollow Earth people that kind of go into that, but I'll cover it. So we had Operation High Jump, the 1946 and 1947 U.S. expedition to Antarctica. Operation High Jump has fueled theories of secret Nazi bases. Some speculate that these bases may have served as a refuge for escaping Nazis and a research facilities for advanced technologies, including the Glock. Then you have Admiral Richard E. Byrd's alleged testimonies. Claims suggest that Admiral Byrd, the leader of Operation High Jump, encountered advanced technology and witnessed secret Nazi bases during the expedition, lending support to the Antarctic base theories. Then you have hollow Earth and inner Earth, which ties into the whole Antarctic thing. Some theories propose that Antarctica conceals entrance points to a subterranean world inhabited by extraterrestrial beings or an advanced civilization. Now, these theories connect to the alleged Antarctic bases with the larger narrative of hidden knowledge and extraterrestrial influence. So, to conclude this, and we'll go ahead and take another look here at the Glock. The Glock's enigma intertwines the possibilities of an extraterrestrial connection, Nazi Germany's secret projects, and the existence of alleged Antarctic bases. While concrete evidence remains elusive, anecdotal testimonies, the device's advanced capabilities, and the broader historical context of Nazi Germany's scientific pursuits raise intriguing questions. Further research, access to classified information, and exploration of Antarctica may shed light on the mysteries surrounding the Glock, deepening our understanding of its potential extraterrestrial origins and its place within the intricate tapestry of history. So, it may be something to the Glock. For a long time, I didn't really think twice about it. I heard many stories about it, read about it, and really didn't feel like that was something that was plausible. And it truthfully, just the revelations from David Grush kind of opened me up to it. So, I'm feeling like it was potentially possible for, that to happen, especially if you had someone smart enough, which we found out that what operates Paperclip, and that there were a lot of guys over there in Germany who were pretty darn smart and came over and ended up working for us. Warner von Braun and a lot of the others. So a lot of great minds over there, even though it was a horrific part of history. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I guess it's just something to think about. But with that being said, let's get into what we really are here for today, would really want to shed light on, which is going to be the Disclosure Project 2001. So if you have any knowledge of the Disclosure Project, a lot of people within ufology obviously know about this, but maybe some of the newer people to ufology, or people who are just trying to hash this out and trying to, do a lot of research, which I know a lot of people who are just getting into this. It's a lot of information to take in. So Disclosure Project 1.0 happened back in 2001. And as Dr. Stephen Greer, whatever you think about the man, he put this on at the press club in Washington, D.C., had a lot of people from military and science and the science world, which you'll end up seeing here. We don't have any video clips, but we do have background information on each of the people, and we'll kind of go over that so you can get a feel for what that moment was like. Now, obviously, when you think of 2001, we had a tragedy in 2001, an American tragedy, which was 9/11. Never forget, right? So, obviously, that takes precedence over a Disclosure Project, especially at a time when stigma was still high anyway. So, it's hard to gauge what the real impact of it was at the time, but when you put it in context today, then you can really appreciate what was done. That was followed up by the citizens hearing for UFO disclosure that Stephen Bassett put on at the press club as well back in 2013. And we'll probably do a separate thing about that. But I kind of want to get into this. There were a lot of speakers here, and they had some compelling stories as far as things that they knew. And the thing that I loved, which is something that we are asking for a lot of whistleblowers and people who have information to do today, is they all ended their statements with they are willing to testify in front of Congress, right? And so that's what we're asking for all these people to do. That's the call of the day. So what I'm hoping is that this Disclosure Project 2.0, which we'll find out shortly, follows the same path. And then who is Dr. Stephen Greer going to get to speak at this thing? So it could be a big win, especially in the climate that we're in right now, where disclosure is kind of ramped up and it's kind of, a crack is in the dam at this point. This could be something that kind of puts it over, depending on what's presented. But let's go ahead and take a look at who was there, what happened, and we'll go from here. So just starting out, obviously we have Dr. Stephen Greer, who put this thing on. So a synopsis of what actually happened here is Dr. Greer and a group of military advisors gathered to disclose the truth about UFOs and extraterrestrial intelligence, which have been ridiculed and denied for over 50 years at that time. Over 400 military and intelligence witnesses, 400, including government officials, corporate contractors, can prove that we are not alone. The witness have firsthand knowledge of classified projects and technologies worth billions of dollars, which, if used peacefully, could solve the energy crisis, address environmental changes, and prevent global conflicts. The goal is to urge the U.S. Congress and President to initiate an official inquiry and disclose this information, as it poses significant implications for human future, national security, and world peace. Testimonies revealed that extraterrestrial objects have been tracked on radar, exhibiting advanced capabilities such as high speeds and anti-gravity propulsion systems. There is evidence that extraterrestrial life forms have been retrieved and studied for decades, but this information has been hidden from Congress and administrations, right? So that's the same thing that's still happening today. The growing power of these classified projects poses a threat to national security, and it's crucial to ban weaponizing space and properly supervise these projects. The Disclosure Campaign aims to hold hearings, conduct studies, and declassify relevant technologies for peaceful energy generation. Public support is sought to contact representatives and leaders worldwide to initiate an honest inquiry into this subject and embrace peaceful cooperation with other civilizations in space. Kind of rings true to what we have going on now. I mean, the same message applies, right? It's the same thing that we're currently talking about current day. And so that's why whatever you think about Greer, you kind of have to applaud the fact that he went ahead and put this back on. Now, will it be for the right reasons? We shall see. So the first speaker at this Disclosure Project 1.0 is what we'll call it 1.0, is John Callahan. Now, John Callahan, a retired FAA employee, he recounts an incident involving a UFO sighting 2 years before retiring. He received a call from the Alaska region asking for guidance on how to address the media regarding a UFO sighting. Callahan instructed them to say it was under investigation and have the data sent to the FAA Tech Center in Atlantic City. He and his boss traveled to Atlantic City, where they recorded the event on video and synchronized it with voice recordings of the air traffic controller's communication. They briefed the administrator and later presented the data and the video to President Reagan's scientific staff. However, the CIA representative at the meeting claimed the event and the meeting never happened. Callahan was told that public disclosure of the UFO sighting would cause panic, and the data was to be studied internally. Despite receiving reports related to the incident, the FAA didn't consider it an air traffic problem and left it unresolved. Callahan possesses voice tapes, original video footage, and computer data printouts from the incident. Next speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Brown. Charles L. Brown, a retired lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force, shared his experience with UFO investigations during his service. After joining the Army during World War II and later transitioning to the newly formed U.S. Air Force in 1949, He was assigned to the Office of Special Investigations, or OSI. As part of OSI, he worked on investigating unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, worldwide. The initial project was called Project Grudge and later evolved into Project Blue Book. Brown collected and analyzed data from various sources, including radar and visual sightings reported by reputable individuals such as airline pilots, military pilots, and police officers. Based on his analysis, he became convinced that there was substance to the reporting sightings, with confirmation from ground and airborne sources. Brown expressed the importance of bringing attention to these sightings globally and supports the efforts of the Disclosure Project. Our next speaker was Mr. Michael Smith. Now, Mr. Michael Smith was a former Air Force sergeant, recounts his experience with UFO sightings during his service from 1967 to 1973. While stationed at Klamath Falls, Oregon in 1970, he witnessed a UFO on radar hovering at approximately 80,000 feet. The object descended, disappeared briefly, and then reappeared at the same altitude. It later moved 200 miles away and repeated the cycle twice more. Smith learned that when encountering a UFO, the protocol was to notify NORAD without documenting or discussing the event. NORAD contacted him later that year to inform him of a UFO approaching the California coastline, advising him to take no action. In late 1972, stationed in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, Smith received panic calls from police officers pursuing 3 UFOs near Mackinac Bridge. He verified their presence on radar and contacted NORAD, which diverted incoming B-52s to avoid proximity to the UFOs. Smith responded to inquiries by stating that nothing was detected on radar. Next speaker was Mr. Enrique Colbeck. So Enrique Colbeck, a radar controller at the International Airport of Mexico City, shared his experience as a witness to multiple UFO sightings in Mexico. Despite being unfamiliar with public speaking, Colbeck voluntarily speaks out about these incidents. He provides examples such as 15 objects detected near Toluca Airport in 1992 and a near collision involving an international flight in 1994. Colbeck mentions specific dates and times when sightings occurred, including reports from pilots about bright lights and unusual air traffic. He highlights a significant incident on September 15, 1994, where a radar system detected the same object for 5 hours without movement, which raised concerns. The next day, they received information about investigations into these sightings by a high-level agency. Colbeck refers to a location southeast of Toluca Airport where a large flying saucer was reportedly sighted. He emphasizes the danger posed by these events, particularly in the context of aviation safety in Mexico, and expresses a desire for awareness and caution. The next speaker was Mr. Commander Graham Bethune. Now, Graham Bethune, a retired Navy commander pilot, recalls a UFO sighting that occurred 50 years ago on February 10, 1951. While flying from Keflavik, Iceland to Argentine, Newfoundland at night, Bethune and the crew witnessed a glowing light in the water. As they approached, the glow transformed into a large circle of white lights on the water. After a brief period, the lights disappeared and a smaller yellow halo appeared about 15 miles away. Bethune took manual control of the aircraft, attempting to maneuver under the object, but encountered a collision among crew members due to the sudden movement. The object then moved to the right and flew alongside their craft, still at a different altitude. They observed its shape, including a dome and corona discharge. Bethune switched positions with the other pilot to gauge passengers' reactions and decided not to report the incident as advised by a psychiatrist, fearing potential consequences. The cockpit instruments experienced electromagnetic effects affecting the magnetic compass and directional finders. The UFO was tracked on radar traveling at speeds exceeding 1,800 miles per hour. Upon landing, they were interrogated separately by the Air Force and Navy intelligence, resulting in detailed reports. Bethune possesses an official 18-page Navy and Air Force report and is willing to testify before Congress. Next person up was Mr. Dan Willis. So Dan Willis, a former United States Navy member, shares two separate incidents related to UFO sightings in 1969 while working at the Naval Communications Station in San Francisco. Willis received a secret message from a ship near Alaska reporting the emergence of a glowing reddish-orange elliptical object from the ocean. The object, approximately 70 feet in diameter, quickly ascended into space at a speed of around 7,000 miles per hour, with the ship's radar tracking and confirming the sighting. Years later, during his time at the Naval Electronic Engineering Center in San Diego, Willis recounts a co-worker's experience at the NORAD facility. The co-worker observed unidentified objects appearing on screens, displaying extraordinary maneuvers such as going off the scale and making right-angle turns. When the co-worker asked about these occurrences, their supervisor casually referred to them as, quote, a visit from one of our little friends. Willis states that these accounts are true. Next up, we had Dr. Don Phillips with Lockheed Skunk Works. Now, Don Phillips, a former employee of Lockheed Skunk Works and United States Air Force, recounts his experience related to classified aircraft and UFO sightings. Phillips works as a design engineer alongside Kelly Johnson at Lockheed Skunk Works, contributing to projects such as U-2 and the SR-71 aircraft, which were classified and renowned for the altitude and speed capabilities. Now, he suggests that these aircraft played a significant role in ending the Cold War. Phillips mentions evidence suggesting that the SR-71 and its predecessor may have had a secondary mission of monitoring extraterrestrial activity. He then describes a paranormal experience at a radar site near Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, where he witnessed lights in the sky moving at extraordinary speeds and displaying remarkable maneuverability. Radar personnel confirmed the sightings, documenting 6 to 7 unidentified flying objects that appeared to be intelligently controlled. And you have a familiar face here to ufology, Robert Salas. Robert Salas, a former Air Force captain, shares his account of a UFO incident that occurred on March 16, 1967 at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. While stationed underground monitoring nuclear-tipped missiles, Salas received calls from security guards reporting strange lights in the sky. Initially dismissing the reports, he soon received a more urgent call describing a bright red object hovering outside the front gate. Shortly after, the missiles under Salas' command began to malfunction, rendering them unlaunchable. He reveals that a similar incident happened at Echo Flight, where all 10 missiles were affected. Salas mentions witnesses and documentation supporting the events, including telexes from SAC headquarters expressing concern over the missile failures. He offers his willingness to testify before Congress and mentions additional incidents in Minot, North Dakota, and Loring Air Force Base, suggesting a pattern of UFO activity near missile silos. And as we know, that's the case that pretty much made everyone aware that these things seem to be attracted to nuclear sites. Next up, we have Lieutenant Colonel Dwayne Arneson. Now, Dwayne Arneson, a retired colonel who served as U.S. Air Force for 26 years, shares 3 experiences related to UFOs. As a young lieutenant in Germany, he saw a message indicating a crashed UFO on the island of Spitsbergen, Norway. In 1967, while stationed in Great Falls, Montana, he witnessed a message reporting a UFO near missile silos causing their deactivation. The investigation was conducted by Bob Kaminsky, Arneson's former manager at Boeing. Lastly, a commander at Castle Force Station, Arneson received reports from security police at Loring Air Force Base about UFO sightings near nuclear weapons storage areas. He expresses his willingness to testify before Congress. Next up, we have Mr. Harlan Bentley. Harlan Bentley, a former PFC in the United States Army stationed near Washington, D.C. in the late 1950s, recalls witnessing a UFO incident. He describes seeing a crash craft and immediately, he describes seeing a craft crash and immediately take off again. The following night, while on radar duty, he received a call from another base reporting multiple UFOs. Bentley detected a blip on his radar, which rapidly moved away at a constant velocity of 17,000 miles per hour. 10 years later, while working on a classified project in California, he overheard an astronaut communication mentioning a bogey on a collision course with a lunar module. Bentley shares his willingness to testify before Congress. Next up, we have Mr. John Maynard, Defense Intelligence Agency. So John Maynard, a retired Army Sergeant First Class, held a top secret clearance during his 21 years of service. Having reviewed over 2,000 sensitive documents, he discovered numerous references to UFOs and targeted objects. While working in the field of nuclear disarmament, he encountered objects and photographs that were unrelated to the mission. Maynard also acknowledges the existence of black operations and shadow government conspiracies, expressing a willingness to testify before Congress. He emphasizes the importance of disclosing information and offers to testify under oath before Congress, prioritizing their involvement over any other organization. Next up, we have Sergeant Carl Wolf, U.S. Air Force. Carl Wolf, a precision electronics photographic repairman in the United States Air Force with top secret crypto clearance, was loaned to the Lunar Orbiter Project at NASA's Langley Air Force Base in 1965. While working there, he encountered a distressed airman who revealed the discovery of a base on the backside of the moon and showed him photographs of mushroom-shaped buildings, spherical buildings, and towers. Concerned about breaching security, Carl didn't question further and hoped to hear about it on the news, but over 30 years later, the information remains undisclosed. We covered this lady a few shows ago, Donna Hare. Donna Hare, former NASA employee at Philco Ford Aerospace from 1967 to 1981, spoke out about her experiences. She worked as a design illustrator draftsman, creating launch slides, landing slides, and projecting plotting boards and lunar maps for NASA. While working on site in Building 8, she had a secret clearance that allowed her to access to restricted areas. She encountered a photograph in the NASA lab that showed a dot on the emulsion, and when she questioned it, a technician informed her that round dots on the emulsion do not leave round shadows on the ground. This indicated that the photo captured an unidentified craft. Donna realized the secrecy surrounding such information, as the technician mentioned that these anomalies were airbrushed out before being released to the public. She further investigated by questioning others who worked at the facility, discovering that some of them had been asked to burn photographs and were not allowed to look at them. One guard who succumbed to temptation and viewed a UFO photo was struck on his head, resulting in injury. Donna also learned from someone in quarantine with the Apollo astronauts that they had seen objects on the moon but were instructed to keep quiet about it. She emphasizes that not everyone at the facility was aware of these incidents, indicating a selective dissemination of information. Next up, we have Mr. Larry Warren, U.S. Air Force security officer. So Larry Warren, a former security specialist assigned to RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge NATO Air Force Base facilities in Suffolk, East Anglia, addressed the audience and the press. He revealed that 20 years ago, in 1980, he experienced a 3-night UFO event while on duty guarding nuclear weapons stored at the facility. Warren mentioned that these incidents involve objects making incursions over their weapons storage area and emitting thin beams of light that affected the ordnance. He suggested that these objects may have been on the ground on 2 different nights, potentially indicating the presence of another life form. Warren emphasized that these events were of great defense significance, both for the United Kingdom and the United States, and that they remain shrouded in secrecy. He viewed this as a human rights issue rather than solely a UFO matter. Warren expressed his willingness to testify under oath about these experiences and the significance of these events. He mentioned a memo by Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt, the deputy base commander, which detailed and sounded like fiction. Additionally, an audio tape recorded by Holt during the incidents provided further evidence. Warren hoped that his fellow servicemen who also witnessed these events would be granted immunity and could join him in sharing their testimonies, which he later would. He considered it an honor to be among the speakers at the hearing and acknowledged the presence of his son, Dennis, as well as other attendees. He also stated that he would be willing to testify in front of Congress. Next up, Major George A. Filer III. George Filer III introduced himself as a retired intelligence officer and a flyer with extensive experience. He initially didn't believe in UFOs until a call from London Control in 1962 prompted him to chase a UFO in his aircraft. During their pursuit, they observed a distinct radar return, suggesting a metallic object. When they got close, the UFO illuminated and quickly ascended into space, resembling a shuttle launch. Fowler mentioned instances where he briefed high-ranking officials about UFO incidents, such as the 1976 UFO encounter in Tehran, Iran, where electrical systems failed on 2 intercepting Iranian F-4s. He also recounted significant incidents in 1978 where UFOs were observed on radar and reported by various sources at McGuire Air Force Base, including claims of a crashed UFO and an alien being shot by a military policeman. Fowler revealed his continued interest in UFOs and his role as the Eastern Director of the Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON. He emphasized that numerous credible reports of UFO sightings are received regularly, indicating that the phenomena are real and witnessed by highly qualified individuals. Next up, we have Sergeant Clifford Stone from the U.S. Army. Clifford Stone's retired Sergeant First Class of the United States Army mentioned his secret clearance with nuclear surety. He referred to his involvement in special operations, specifically mentioning situations where crashed saucers or UFOs were recovered. He acknowledged that while the government was publicly denying the existence of UFOs, he and his team were involved in recovering these objects and even encountered living beings associated with them. He expressed a desire to provide detailed accounts of these incidents, but mentioned that arrangements would need to be made to discuss further. Stone emphasized the discrepancy between the government's public denial and their covert actions in recovering UFOs, asserting that these objects were of extraterrestrial origin. He recounted an event in 1969 when his team was sent to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, where they discovered a crashed UFO with bodies on board. Stone highlighted that UFO crashes are rare occurrences and that the balance of evidence should not be considered evidence of absence. He expressed his readiness to testify before Congress. Make sure I said that right. So, which was pretty great statement. He said, the absence of evidence should not be considered evidence of absence. That's brilliant. So, moving on, we have Mr. Mark McCandlish. Mark McCandlish, a conceptual artist who worked for defense contractors, introduced himself and highlighted his involvement in conceptual artwork for defense programs such as X-30 and HISTEP, HYSTP. He mentioned having a secret security clearance twice during his career. McCandlish shared 2 significant experiences related to UFO sightings. In 1967, while at Westover Air Force Base, he observed a UFO through a telescope hovering over a nuclear weapons storage facility and witnessed its rapid acceleration. In 1988, his college friend, Brad Sorensen, informed him about 3 flying saucers he witnessed at Norton Air Force Base during an air show. McCandlish contacted his Congressman Georgie Brown Jr., who confirmed the exhibit of the saucers and referred to them as alien reproduction vehicles, or ARVs, or flux liners. McCandlish presented a diagram based on Sorensen's sketch. Actually, let me bring that up here. Based on Sorensen's sketch, let's see, and later obtained photographs of a similar craft. He mentioned a conversation with Kent Sellen, who described encountering a classified aircraft, the ARV, while working at Edwards Air Force Base in 1973. Providing additional details, McCandlish mentioned Brett Sorensen meeting with aeronautical designer Burt Rutan, who initially dismissed the blueprint as a joke, but a colonel from Edwards Air Force Base expressed surprise and anger upon seeing it. McCandlish discussed declassified documents showing Air Force and NASA testing of saucer-shaped crafts, as well as inter-office memo from Hercules Aerospace mentioning zero-point energy and scalar waves as a basis for anti-gravity propulsion systems. And here's another view of the blueprint that was mentioned here. Now, moving on to the next speaker. Well, we know this guy, right? Mr. Daniel Sheehan. Daniel Sheehan, an attorney serving as a general counsel to Disclosure Project, provided his background and legal expertise. He mentioned being the general counsel for the New York Times in the Pentagon Papers case and serving as a special counsel during the Watergate scandal. Sheehan discussed his involvement in the investigation of extraterrestrial intelligence and UFO phenomenon. He mentioned a meeting between President Carter and the Director of Central Intelligence, George Bush Sr., where the president requested classified information on UFOs and extraterrestrial intelligence, but the request was denied. Sheehan was asked to explore the Vatican Library for information, but was refused access. He then became a special consultant to the United States Library of Congress Congressional Research Service and gained access to classified portions of the Blue Book Project. Sheehan discovered photographs of a crashed unidentified flying object with symbols on its side, which he traced onto a yellow pad. He was questioned by security guards, but managed to keep the tracing. Sheehan reported his findings to the United States Jesuit headquarters and requested a study of extraterrestrial intelligence by major religious denominations, which was declined. He also delivered a seminar to scientists at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Sheehan expressed his willingness to testify before Congress and share details about his beliefs regarding the relationship between an off-the-shelf enterprise and the secret government. He concluded by stating his pride in serving the general counsel of the Disclosure Project. And the last speaker was Dr. Carol Rosin. Now, Carol Rosin introduced herself as an individual who, in 1974, had a meeting with Dr. Werner von Braun, known as the father of rocketry in the United States. During their conversation, von Braun expressed his concern about preventing the weaponization of space. He mentioned that the public was being deceived into believing that space-based weapons were necessary to counter various threats, starting with the Russians, then terrorists, third world countries now referred to as rogue nations, and even asteroids. Von Braun repeatedly emphasized that the final card, the last pretext for weaponizing space, would be the extraterrestrial threat. Initially skeptical, Rosin eventually came to understand the truth of von Braun's warnings and traveled worldwide, meeting with people from over 100 countries who also opposed space-based weapons. She mentioned that the current justification for such weapons is to protect satellites, but she believes it to be a lie. Rosin affirmed that the extraterrestrial beings and craft that have been observed are real, and witnesses have testified to their existence and capabilities, including shutting down missile silos. She founded the Institute for Security and Cooperation in Outer Space with the goal of transforming the war industry into a cooperative space industry that could address such global challenges such as climate change and energy crisis without disrupting economies or causing job losses. She emphasized von Braun's vision of a peaceful world with cooperation between Earth and extraterrestrial cultures. Rosin concluded by expressing her willingness to testify before Congress under oath about her experiences and beliefs. So, what I'll say about that, that was the Disclosure Project 1.0. And you see all the military, former military people that came to speak, giving their stories. And a lot of those stories line up with a lot of the ones that we hear today from military people from the military, like Dave Fravor, like Ryan Graves. The story goes on. So if you see the same story is being repeated over and over again, and it's up to us to stop us from having to go do this a third time. We call this like the second wave of disclosure. So they tried to tackle this back in the 60s with the Project Blue Book. Then that got shut down. And we're just now, pretty much 60 years later, just now getting back to that point to where we can have this discussion with Congress and notify our government to come out and tell us what it is that they're doing. Now, even though I'm a person that says that disclosure will never come from the government and it must come from humanity, humanity is going to be the one to push it, which kind of has been shored up by the fact that now David Grush has stepped over to the humanity side and he is bringing some pretty good information. The disclosure projects are still important because pretty much if we want to move into post-disclosure with an intact society, then the governments that are controlling everything need to come on board. I mean, it's critical. It's a critical point for them to pretty much admit what has happened and to kind of reassure their public, and this is globally, all governments, not just ours here in the United States, to give reassurance to their people that even if they can't stop or control what's going on, that at least they're looking into ways to do it. Instead of, as humanity, we find disclosure and the government still says, no, we don't know what you're talking about. So then we know we have to go separate paths. So, and I'll close this out with saying that the original Disclosure Project, actually, let me get my stuff up here, because I really want to close this out. So the original Disclosure place that same year, it's hard to know what type of impact, if any, it actually had. The 2013 Citizens Hearing on UFO Disclosure, the recent UFO hearings, and now the Disclosure 2.0 is something that might be effective if it's presented the right way. So what do you guys think about that? It's an important time where all the right moves can get us to where we need to go, and it seems like the dominoes are falling one by one by one. And we've had feelings like this before. I want to say last year, 2022, but it was a little different. However, we did have disclosure ramp up. We had people like Dr. Gary Nolan state back in May of last year that things would be coming by the end of the year. We had documentary filmmaker James Fox allude to things right after the moment of contact, stated that other things would be coming out within that year before the end of 2022 that would bring us to disclosure. What happened? Nothing. We had a UAP report that was supposed to be released in October that we thought was going to be, at least delivered on time. They showed us blatantly that wouldn't be the case. So they took the air out of disclosure. They took the air out of any momentum that had been built at that point. So we're hoping they don't do it this time. The NASA hearing is done and over with, and I think that was their big thing. That was the big thing that they had planned, to try to really take the air out of this, which they did for a moment, but then we had David Grush come out right after that with the bombshell, and because they played it that way, now it's getting global attention, and that's what we want, global attention. Now, Dr. Stephen Greer has the opportunity to take this a step further, and tomorrow, or if you're watching this Monday, it'll be later today, to present the Disclosure 2.0 in the right way, bring the right people to speak. Congress is listening this time. You have them all ears, so you're able to present this in a way that I know the first one should have been, but now you have the chance to do it again. So we'll be looking forward to that. I'm gonna stay positive on that and hope that Dr. Stephen Greer really has something in store for us. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So with that being said, I really hope you enjoyed the show today. I really thank you guys for coming out. It has been a pleasure, like always. I love doing this with you guys. And we'll be seeing you soon. Thanks for coming. Take care.